The galaxy was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the air before a storm. Across thousands of star systems, people whispered the same name. It was not the name of a person. It was the name of a ship so large, so dangerous that even planets were afraid of it. The aliens called it the Crown of Destruction. It was the pride of their empire, the biggest warship ever built. It was not just metal and fire. It was a moving city of death. It carried weapons that could burn oceans, crack planets, and erase entire civilizations in minutes. To the alien empire, this ship was not just a weapon. It was proof that they were the strongest force in the galaxy. But the universe has a strange sense of humor. Because when the Crown of Destruction sailed out for its first great mission, another ship appeared. And this ship was not big. It was not famous. It was not even new. It was human. It was small. And its name was strange. It was called the Elbow of Fate. Aliens laughed when they heard the name. They thought humans were fools. Why give a warship such a silly title? Why send a weak little vessel against the strongest ship the galaxy had ever seen? But the humans were not laughing. The Elbow of Fate was old, its armor scratched, its engines not even half the size of the alien monster ship. From a distance, it looked like a bug floating next to a mountain. It should have been crushed instantly, forgotten in history. Yet there it was, one human ship, standing in the shadow of a giant. The alien leaders were so sure of victory that they did not even prepare for a real fight. They gathered their fleets and called their citizens to watch. They wanted the galaxy to see the power of their strongest creation. They wanted to show that no one could resist them, so the stage was set. The biggest warship ever made against the smallest one that dared to stand in its way. The galaxy waited, holding its breath. But the humans were calm. Inside the Elbow of Fate, the crew was small but sharp. They knew they could not win with strength. They knew they could not fight head to head. But humans are strange. They do not fight the way others fight. They imagine. They risk. They find doors where no one sees doors. They make weapons out of ideas. The captain of the Elbow of Fate stood in silence. His face was calm, almost too calm. The crew looked at him and felt something unusual. They did not feel fear. They felt a kind of burning hope. The captain finally spoke, and his voice was steady. "If they want to show the galaxy what power looks like," he said, "then let them. But we will show the galaxy what humans are made of." Those words were carried across the ship, and when the aliens heard them, they laughed again. They thought humans were arrogant. They thought this was madness, but the galaxy began to wonder. The alien warship made its first move. It fired a weapon at a nearby moon just to demonstrate its strength. In one single flash, the moon broke apart into dust and fire. The light spread across space like a warning. The galaxy trembled. Everyone knew the Elbow of Fate could not survive such power, and yet the human ship did not move. It stayed there, quiet, still, like it was waiting for something. The aliens did not understand. They thought the humans were frozen with fear. They thought this would be easy. But inside the Elbow of Fate, the crew was not frozen. They were watching. They were learning. Humans do not look at fire and see only destruction. They look at fire and see how it burns, how it moves, how it can be used. Even in the face of death, they study. They prepare. The captain closed his eyes for a moment. He was remembering Earth, remembering how humans had always been underestimated. From ancient battles with swords and arrows to wars fought with machines, humanity had always been the weaker one, the smaller one. And yet somehow, humanity always found a way to survive. The Elbow of Fate was not just a ship, it was a story of every human who had ever refused to give up, a story of every moment when the impossible was made possible by will, by courage, by cleverness. The aliens did not know it yet, but the battle that was about to begin would not be written as the story of the Crown of Destruction. It would be written as the story of one human ship that dared to stand against the impossible. The galaxy leaned closer, waiting for the first true strike. The silence before battle was thick, almost alive. One side had the strongest, most dangerous ship ever made. The other side had the strangest name and the smallest chance. And yet every great story starts the same way, with a fool who dares to challenge a king. The elbow of fate moved forward, slow but steady. The galaxy held its breath. And the battle for the future of humanity was about to begin. The alien empire had built its masterpiece, the crown of destruction. Everyone believed it was the final word in war. Everyone believed no ship, no race, no species could stand against it. And then came the strange human ship. The name was whispered at first, then repeated across star systems. The elbow of fate. 80. First, people laughed. It sounded like a joke, like a mistake in translation. Why would anyone call a warship an elbow? Shouldn't it be named after storms, fire, or gods? That is what other species did. But humans were different. They were not afraid to be strange. They were not afraid to be laughed at. When the elbow of fate arrived, it did not arrive like a conqueror. It did not shine with polished metal. Its hull was dark, scarred with old battles. Its engines gave off a tired hum, not the proud roar of new power. To any eye, it looked like an old fragile vessel, something that belonged in a museum, not a battlefield, and yet it moved with purpose. Inside, the crew was small, but their eyes burned with determination. These were not soldiers raised in comfort. They were humans, raised from a species that had fought for every step of survival. Their world, Earth, had been a place of storms, hunger, war, and danger. For thousands of years, humans had lived with struggle, and because of that, they had learned something important. Strength does not only live in size or weapons. True strength lives in the mind, in the heart, and in the will to fight when everything says you should surrender. The captain of the elbow of fate knew this better than anyone. He was a quiet man, but when he spoke, his words carried weight. Standing on the command deck, he looked at his small crew. They looked back, not with fear, but with trust. He told them only one thing. We are not here to show them our guns. We are here to show them what it means to be human. Those words echoed in the silence of the ship. Simple words, but sharp like a blade. The alien empire, watching from their great warship, did not understand. They saw only a small enemy, a weak enemy. To them, the humans were nothing, a distraction, an insect buzzing near a giant. They prepared to crush the elbow of fate with one blow, confident that no one would remember the human ship's name tomorrow. But that was their mistake. Because the elbow of fate was not just metal and engines. It was not just a ship. It was a symbol. Every scratch on its hull was a reminder of battles survived. Every patch of worn metal told a story of escape, of clever tricks, of impossible victories. The ship itself was like humanity, underestimated, strange, and far tougher than it looked. The first move was small. The elbow of fate did not fire its weapons. Instead, it sent out a signal, not a warning, not a surrender, but something stranger. The signal carried music, human music, a slow, steady beat that echoed across the void of space. The aliens were confused. Music? In the middle of war? To them, war was numbers, fire, and control. But to humans, war was also about the soul. The galaxy listened, puzzled, as the strange rhythm filled the silence. It was not meant to scare. It was meant to remind the galaxy that humans were not like anyone else. The crown of destruction ignored the signal. Its massive weapons began to charge, lights glowing across its endless surface. Energy gathered, humming like the heartbeat of a god preparing to strike. Still, the elbow of fate did not retreat. It moved closer, slow and steady, like a small predator walking toward a giant beast. The aliens laughed again, but the laughter was not as strong as before. Somewhere deep inside, doubt was beginning to grow. Why were the humans so calm? Why were they so steady? The answer was simple. The elbow of fate had a secret. Not a secret weapon of raw destruction, but something even more dangerous. It carried the most unpredictable power in the galaxy, the human mind. The captain had studied the alien ship. He knew its strengths, but more importantly, he searched for its weaknesses. Every giant has a weak point. Every fortress has a crack. The humans believed that no matter how strong an enemy seemed, there was always a way in. The elbow of fate carried not only weapons but also knowledge. Human engineers had built systems designed to test, confuse, and twist enemy technology. It was not the strongest gun in space, but it was clever. And cleverness, humans believed, could break even the strongest walls. As the two ships faced each other, the galaxy waited. One was the largest, most dangerous ship ever made. The other was a strange little human vessel with a funny name. On paper, there was no question who would win. And yet, when the galaxy looked closer, they saw something else. They saw the way the humans stood. They saw the way the ship moved, not in fear, but with intention. They felt the strange pulse of human music across the stars. The crown of destruction was a ship of war. The elbow of fate was a ship of defiance. And sometimes, defiance is the sharpest weapon of all. The aliens raised their weapons, ready to end the humans in one flash of light. But what they did not know, what no one knew, was that the elbow of fate had already begun the game. A game of shadows, of patience, of clever tricks. A game where the smallest ship in the galaxy might become the most dangerous. The galaxy leaned closer. The humans smiled, and the battle was about to take a turn no one expected. The galaxy had seen many wars, but none like this. On one side, the crown of destruction, a warship so large it carried entire cities inside its steel body. On the other, the elbow of fate, a human ship that looked more like a stubborn shadow than a weapon of war. The two ships drifted closer across the black sea of space. For a long moment, there was silence. The kind of silence that feels alive, heavy, as if the stars themselves were waiting to see what would happen. Then the crown of destruction fired. A beam of light, hotter than the heart of a star, cut across the void. It struck an empty asteroid beside the elbow of fate, shattering it into dust and flame. The message was clear. This is what we can do to you. The galaxy gasped. Everyone watching thought the human ship would turn back, or maybe run. But the elbow of fate did not move. Its engines stayed quiet, its weapons stayed cold. It was as if the humans were daring the giant to try again. The alien commander laughed, his voice carrying through the Empire's channels. "See how they tremble," he said. But when he looked closer, he saw something strange. The humans were not trembling. Their ship had not shifted even an inch. Inside the elbow of fate, the crew sat steady at their stations. The captain's face was calm, like a teacher waiting for a noisy classroom to settle. His eyes studied the enemy's weapon fire. His mind worked like a machine. He was not watching destruction. He was watching patterns. Humans had always done this. On Earth, they watched storms, waves, fires, and animals. They learned how things moved, how they behaved, and then they turned that knowledge into survival. The captain watched the alien, weapon like a hunter watching the tracks of a beast. Every flash of light was a clue. Every vibration in the void was a secret. Finally, the alien commander gave the order. Destroy them. The crown of destruction released its second strike, this time aiming directly at the elbow of fate. A wall of energy roared across space. To everyone watching, it was the end. No ship so small could stand against such force. But the elbow of fate moved, not fast, not wild, but with perfect timing. At the last second, it slid just out of the weapon's path. The energy beam missed by the width of a whisper. The human ship tilted, shook, and steadied itself again. The galaxy froze. The humans had survived. The alien commander's smile disappeared. He ordered a third strike. Then a fourth. Then a fifth. Each time the elbow of fate moved like water slipping through fingers. Not strong enough to block, not big enough to fight back. but clever enough to dodge, to bend, to flow. The galaxy began to whisper. How are they doing this? The answer was simple. Humans were watching. Every strike taught them more about the crown of destruction. Every shot was not just an attack, it was information. And humans loved information. The captain finally gave his first command of battle. His voice was low, but it carried strength. Let them fire. The more they fire, the more they reveal. We do not run. We do not fear. We learn. The crew obeyed. They did not panic even as the massive beams lit up the void around them. Their screens filled with data, their minds filled with ideas. Each near miss was like a page in a book. The book of how to kill a giant. But the aliens did not know this. To them, the humans were simply lucky, a mistake, a joke. Still, doubt began to creep into their minds. No insect should dodge the hand of a god. And yet, this insect kept moving. Finally, the elbow of fate answered. It did not fire its biggest weapon. It did not roar with power. Instead, it launched a single small probe. A tiny dart of metal no bigger than a shuttle streaked across the void. It hit the surface of the crown of destruction, not to damage it, but to listen. The alien commander ignored it. Why fear a toy? But deep inside the crown, systems began to flicker. The probe had teeth. It was not a weapon of fire, but a weapon of thought. It carried human code, human tricks, human chaos. And chaos was something the aliens did not understand. The crown of destruction was built on order. Perfect numbers, perfect systems, perfect control. The probe whispered a little bit of disorder into its heart. A small error, a wrong command. A delay of half a second, almost nothing. But to the humans, almost nothing was everything. The elbow of fate moved again, sliding just as another beam fired. The timing was perfect. The galaxy now saw the truth. The humans were not just surviving, they were dancing. The first encounter was not about who could kill faster. It was about who could learn faster, and the humans were masters of learning. The crown of destruction still had its size, its fire, its power. But the elbow of fate had something greater: unpredictability. The humans fought like no one else in the galaxy. They did not follow rules. They made their own. For the first time, the alien commander felt something strange in his chest. A cold, unwelcome feeling. It was not anger. It was not pride. It was something his people had almost forgotten. It was fear. The galaxy leaned closer. The humans smiled. The first encounter was over, but the real battle had only just begun. The first exchange was over, but the tension only grew heavier. The crown of destruction had fired again and again, yet the small human ship still drifted in the void, alive. The elbow of fate had not struck back with force. It had not even shown real weapons. It had only danced. To the aliens, this was impossible. To the humans, this was only the beginning. Inside the alien warship, the commander's pride was wounded. His people had built the strongest ship in history, yet one human vessel made them look clumsy. He ordered his crew to prepare for a full barrage. This time, there would be no chances, no mercy. The elbow of fate would be erased. But the humans wanted that. The captain of the elbow of fate leaned forward, eyes sharp. He knew the aliens were impatient. They had relied on fear for so long that they no longer remembered patience. They believed power solved every problem. That belief was their weakness. The human trap was simple but deadly: make the enemy reveal everything. The crew of the elbow of fate worked quietly, watching their screens. Each alien attack revealed more: the angle of the beams, the recharge time, the energy output. The humans mapped it all, turning the crown's strength into numbers and then into weaknesses. The captain gave the order: hold position, let them think we are cornered. The elbow of fate dimmed its lights, slowed its engines, and drifted as if tired. To the galaxy it looked weak, wounded, almost ready to collapse. The trap was baited. The alien commander took the bait. With a sharp gesture, he ordered every weapon to fire. Dozens of beams, missiles, and cannons roared across the void, all aiming at the tiny human ship. The galaxy expected the elbow of fate to vanish in fire. But at that very moment, the ship moved, not fast, but with perfect timing. It slid sideways, engines flaring bright, pulling away from the storm of destruction. The alien beams crashed into each other, their own fire colliding, creating a chaos of energy. The crown of destruction shook. Its own weapons had damaged parts of its shield. The aliens had turned their strength into a weakness, and they didn't even realize it yet. The elbow of fate had survived again, not by luck, not by power, by design. The crew cheered softly, but the captain only raised his hand. Stay focused. The trap is not finished. Now came the second step. From the belly of the elbow of fate, dozens of small drones launched. They were not heavy machines of war. They were small, almost harmless looking, like pieces of scrap metal. They drifted slowly, carried by the silence of space, until they surrounded the crown of destruction. The aliens laughed at first. What could these tiny machines do against their fortress of steel? But these drones were not weapons of fire. They were weapons of confusion. Each drone carried human code, signals, and tricks. They flashed false readings, scrambled sensors, and whispered lies into the alien systems. Suddenly, the crown of destruction could not see clearly. Its sensors showed dozens of human ships where only one existed. Its targeting systems found enemies that were not real. The commander shouted in anger, but his crew could not tell what was true and what was false. The elbow of fate had thrown sand into the eyes of a giant, and then came the third step. The human ship powered its engines and flew straight toward the crown. To the galaxy, it looked insane. Why would a small ship fly into the mouth of a monster? But this was the heart of the trap. The closer the elbow of fate came, the more the giant ship's own weapons became useless. Its guns were designed for fleets, for planets, for armies. Not for a single insect crawling under its skin. The elbow of fate slid beneath the crown of destruction, hugging the surface of the massive ship. The alien guns could not aim without hitting their own hull. The galaxy gasped. The humans had found the blind spot. Inside the crown, alarms rang. The commander roared in fury. Find them! Crush them! But his crew could not. The human ship was too close, too hidden. The giant had lost sight of the insect. And then, the elbow of fate delivered the final piece of its trap. It released a wave of electromagnetic pulses, small and precise, like knives cutting wires. Systems inside the crown flickered, shields weakened, and weapons jammed. It was not destruction. It was disruption. The strongest ship in the galaxy, built to crush worlds, was being undone by silence, shadows, and human trickery. The galaxy leaned closer, stunned. How could this be? How could the smallest ship turn the largest into prey? The answer was simple. The trap was never about firepower. It was about pride. The humans had used the alien arrogance against them. They had made the enemy reveal their strength, then turned it into weakness. Inside the elbow of fate, the crew sat in silence, watching their screens. They knew the battle was far from over. The crown of destruction was wounded, not broken. But the trap had worked. The giant had been fooled. And now, for the first time, the aliens felt what humans had felt since the beginning. The taste of fear. The captain spoke quietly, almost to himself. Every beast has a blind spot. Every wall has a crack. We only needed them to show it to us. The galaxy shivered. The crown of destruction still towered above all. But now everyone watching knew one truth. The humans were not insects. They were hunters, and the trap had only just been set. The galaxy had just witnessed the impossible. The crown of destruction, the largest and most powerful warship ever built, had been caught in a trap. And it was a human ship, small, scarred, almost fragile, that had set it. But the humans were not celebrating. Inside the elbow of fate, The crew knew the truth. This was only the first step. The crown was wounded, but not destroyed. Its size, its weapons, its power, they were still enough to crush entire worlds. The captain stood silently at the command deck, his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes scanned the flickering screens, watching the alien warship struggle against the swarm of drones and the pulse of interference. For a moment, he looked less like a soldier and more like a teacher, patiently waiting for the final part of a lesson to be understood. He whispered almost to himself, "Now they begin to see, but they have not seen everything." Because the elbow of fate carried something more dangerous than drones, more dangerous than tricks, more dangerous than any single weapon. It carried a secret. The secret of humanity. The alien empire had always measured strength by size. The bigger the gun, the stronger the army. The heavier the armor, the greater the chance of survival. To them, power was simple: numbers, firepower, and control. Humans were different. Humans had learned long ago that size was not everything. On Earth, they had once been small creatures on a dangerous world filled with storms, predators, and hunger. They had no claws like tigers, no shells like turtles, no wings like birds. By the laws of nature, they should have been weak, and yet they became the masters of their world. How? Not with teeth, not with size, but with something else: the mind. The elbow of fate carried this lesson inside its systems. It did not hold the galaxy's biggest cannon. It held something that seemed almost laughable to the aliens: a weapon made of thought. The crown's struggle. The crown of destruction roared back to life. Its shields sparked, its weapons recharged. The drones that clouded its vision were slowly being destroyed by waves of automated defenses. The alien commander, furious but determined, leaned forward. "Enough of this game," he growled. "Bring their ship to pieces." And yet, when his crew tried to lock onto the elbow of fate, their targeting systems flickered. Coordinates shifted. Weapons stalled. Commands refused to execute. It was as if the ship itself was confused, unable to trust its own eyes. The humans had planted something inside the crown, something small, invisible, but powerful. It was not a missile. It was not fire. It was human code. The probe that had struck the crown earlier had not been a weapon of steel. It had been a carrier of ideas. Human-made algorithms, viruses, and chaos had slipped into the perfect machine. And once inside, they spread like wildfire. The aliens were masters of order. But humans? Humans were masters of breaking order. The unpredictable mind inside the elbow of fate. The crew worked quickly. Their hands danced over consoles, feeding the crown false maps, false data, false commands. The great warship began to stumble like a blind giant, unsure where the enemy was, unsure even of its own systems. The alien commander slammed his fists against his chair. "Why are the weapons not responding? Why do the shields drop without command?" His crew gave no answer. They were trained for order, not for chaos. But chaos was the human element. The captain of the elbow of fate finally spoke, his voice calm and steady. "Machines are predictable. We are not. That is our weapon." And he was right. Where other species built perfection, humans built imperfection with purpose. Their weapons were not flawless, but they were flexible. Their systems were not unbreakable, but they could adapt. Their minds were not trapped in rules. They could twist, turn, and imagine paths no one else could see. This was the human secret: unpredictability. Fear in the giant, the crown of destruction, shuddered again as its weapons misfired. A massive beam of energy meant for the elbow of fate instead tore through one of its own docking bays, destroying hundreds of smaller support ships before they could even launch. The galaxy gasped. The aliens had laughed at the elbow of fate. Now the laughter was gone. In its place was silence, heavy and uncertain. For the first time, the strongest empire in the galaxy saw something they had not seen in generations. Their enemies' eyes filled not with fear, but with strategy. The humans had turned the battlefield into a puzzle, and the aliens had no answers. The captain's choice. The crew of the Elbow of Fate waited for the order to strike, to finish the fight. But the captain raised his hand. "No," he said softly. "Not yet." The galaxy listened in shock. Why wait? Why hold back when victory was so close? But the captain understood something deeper. The true weapon of the Elbow of Fate was not destruction. It was revelation. The humans wanted the galaxy to see. To see that no matter how strong, how large, or how perfect an enemy was, they could still fall to something smaller. To something smarter. To something human. The secret had been revealed. Humanity's power was not size, not weapons, not strength. It was their ability to be unpredictable, to adapt, to take risks no one else dared to take. The crown of destruction still towered in space, its shadow covering the stars. But now, everyone who watched knew the truth. The strongest ship in the galaxy was no longer feared. The smallest ship had shown the world its secret. And in that moment, the galaxy began to fear something far greater than the crown. It began to fear the humans. The galaxy had gone silent. The crown of destruction, once feared as an unbreakable titan, now looked uncertain. Its weapons misfired. Its shields flickered. Its sensors lied to it. And all of this chaos came not from another empire, not from a fleet, but from one small ship, the Elbow of Fate. The aliens had laughed at its strange name. They were not laughing now. The giant stumbles. The crown's commander stared at his failing systems. Red lights blinked across his bridge. Every order he gave was delayed, corrupted, or lost in the storm of human interference. His crew shouted, in panic, trying to keep control of a machine too big for their hands. "Focus all fire on them," he roared. But when the weapons activated, they aimed at empty space. Ghost ships appeared on the screens, false targets created by human drones. The crown unleashed its power into the void, wasting energy, striking shadows. The galaxy watched, in disbelief. The strongest ship in history was swinging wildly like a blind animal. The human calm inside the Elbow of Fate. The atmosphere was the opposite. There was no shouting, no panic. The crew moved with quiet focus, their captain guiding them with calm precision. He stood at the center of the command deck, his voice low but steady. "Hold steady. Every second they fire, they weaken themselves. Every error brings us closer." Humans knew this was the turning point. The trap had worked. The secret had been revealed. Now came the moment to shift from survival to victory. A dangerous move. The captain gave his next order. "Bring us closer." The crew hesitated. Closer? To the biggest warship ever made? It sounded insane, but they obeyed. The Elbow of Fate's engines flared, carrying the small ship toward the massive alien vessel. The closer they came, the more dangerous it became. The crown's armor was thick, layered with weapons, alive with defenses. One wrong move, and the Elbow of Fate would be crushed. But the captain knew the truth. The closer they came, the more the aliens' giant weapons became useless. The crown was built to fight armies, not insects crawling under its skin. The galaxy leaned forward as the tiny ship disappeared into the shadow of the giant. The storm inside. The crown system screamed as human code spread deeper. Alarms blared. Engines stalled. Weapons jammed. The commander's face twisted with fury. He had never been forced to fight like this. His empire had promised him perfection, but the humans had shown him the flaw inside perfection. Predictability. Now the giant faced an enemy that refused to play by rules. The first strike back. For the first time, the Elbow of Fate revealed its own weapon. It was not a massive gun. It was not a planet cracker. It was a narrow beam, small and precise. The captain pointed to a weak spot mapped by his crew, an exhaust vent exposed by the chaos of the crown's failing systems. "Fire," he ordered. The beam lanced across the void and struck true. A small explosion rippled across the crown's surface. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to prove something important. The giant could bleed. The battlefield was no longer the same. The crown of destruction, once untouchable, floated scarred and broken. Fire burned along its massive hull. Whole sections of its armor had been ripped away. The galaxy, watching from 1,000 hidden eyes, could hardly believe it. The strongest ship ever built was losing. And the one who had done it was a small, almost forgotten vessel, with a strange name, the Elbow of Fate. The silent moment. For a few seconds, the battle paused. The giant was wounded, its weapons silent, its shields flickering like dying flames. The Elbow of Fate circled slowly, its small frame gliding like a predator waiting for the final strike. Inside the crown, the alien commander sat in disbelief. His empire's pride, his fleet's glory, the symbol of their strength. It was failing, before his eyes. His crew stared at him, waiting for orders, but fear had frozen them. They had never been trained for this. They had never imagined that anyone, let alone humans, could bring them so low. On the other side, inside the Elbow of Fate, the atmosphere was different. The crew was tired, their hands trembling from hours of battle, but their eyes burned with something stronger: resolve. They had carried the fight this far, and they were ready to finish it. But the captain was calm. His voice cut through the silence like steel. Hold fire. Not yet. The final choice. The galaxy expected the humans to destroy the crown. To fire one last beam, to end the war, to turn the strongest ship into nothing but drifting wreckage. But the captain had something else in mind. He opened a channel. His voice spread across the void, not only to the crown of destruction, but to every listening ear across the stars. You built this ship to frighten the galaxy, to make everyone kneel. You believed power alone made you rulers. And yet here you sit, brought low by a ship you called weak. The words were sharp, heavy with truth. The aliens clenched their fists, but they could not argue. The galaxy had seen the proof. So I give you a choice, the captain continued. Surrender and live, or fight and be ended here and now. The galaxy is watching. Choose wisely. The weight of fear. The alien commander trembled with rage. His pride screamed at him to fight, to strike, to die with honor. But around him, his crew did not share his pride. They saw the fire tearing through their ship. They felt the systems failing one by one. And more than that, they felt fear. Not fear of death. Fear of the humans. Because if one small ship could do this, what could an entire human fleet do? Voices rose on the alien bridge. Some officers demanded retreat. Others begged for surrender. The commander roared at them, but deep inside, even he felt the truth. The humans had broken more than his ship. They had broken his certainty. The elbow holds. Steady, the Elbow of Fate did not move, it did not rush, it waited. That patience was the sharpest blade of all. The galaxy leaned closer, waiting for the decision that would shape the future. At last, the alien commander's voice cracked through the silence. It was heavy, bitter, full of shame. We surrender. The words echoed across the void like thunder. The crown of destruction lowered its weapons. Its lights dimmed. The giant had bowed to the smallest of challengers, a new legend. The galaxy erupted in shock. Empires that had once mocked humanity now stared at them with wide eyes. Species that had feared the crown now whispered a new name with awe and caution: the Elbow of Fate. It was not the strongest ship. It was not the biggest. But it was the bravest. And bravery, the galaxy learned that day, was stronger than any weapon. Inside the human ship, the crew let out a breath they had been holding for hours. Some smiled, some cried. They had survived the impossible. But the captain remained calm, his face unreadable. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. This was never about one battle. This was about showing them that humans will never kneel. His crew nodded. They understood. The message was clear. The closing shadow. The crown of destruction drifted in silence, its surrender complete. But the fear it once inspired was gone. In its place rose a greater fear, spreading through every corner of the galaxy. Fear of humanity. Because if a single human ship could break the strongest empire's pride, what could the whole of humanity achieve? And so the story of the elbow, a fate, became more than just a victory. It became a warning, a legend, a promise. Final words. When the captain closed the channel, his final words carried across the stars like a vow. Remember this day. Remember this ship. For today, the galaxy saw that the smallest can defeat the largest. Today the galaxy saw what it means to be human. The galaxy listened, and the galaxy did not forget. The elbow of fate sailed away, its engines burning against the black of space. Behind it, the crown of destruction floated silent, a broken monument to arrogance. The battle was over. The war was not. But the humans had written a new chapter in history, one that would echo forever. The giant had fallen. The weak had risen. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.